This is CBC Winnipeg News.
We drove through the night, and there were times when the highway, when you could barely see the car in front of you, the smoke was so thick, and there were times where there were live flames, live fires that were very visible.
Fires are threatening Yellowknife, the capital of the Northwest Territory, so everyone has been ordered to leave. That means more than 20,000 people from Yellowknife are making their way south any way they can as a wildfire makes its way closer to their city. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight in Yellowknife, where a territorial capital is under evacuation order. CBC's Sarah Levitt is there.
What can I get you guys?
Some snacks and some drinks for the people here who are trying to evacuate via airplane. Hundreds of people are here and have been here since early this morning, hoping to register to get out of Yellowknife via airplane. Of course, there are these people trying to get out. They're the people that do not have vehicles. There are hundreds others, thousands in fact, that are taking the highway out for the long trek. It is scary and it is frustrating for these people. The weather is not cooperating in the sense of the fire itself, but also there's rain and it's quite cold. Are you worried about what you saw out there doing the work you were doing?
I think the alarm went off yesterday on my phone at 9 o'clock last night, the emergency. That kind of, it gave me a little spook. It makes you realize that when you see all this, I honestly want to get out of here.
It's quite scary because with the smoke, of course, it's actually lightened up a little bit, but the smoke was very, very thick this morning. And so, I mean, it's not a good situation, that's for sure.
Officials say that they are still concerned that the fire could come to the city. Of course, a number of measures are being taken to try and stop that from happening, including fire breaks and sprinklers on the city outskirts. In the meantime, these people are just trying to get out and get to safety, worried about what will happen here, what will happen to their homes, but hoping that they will be safe. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Yellowknife.
And keep in mind, there's one road into and out of Yellowknife. Former Winnipegger Sarah Swan fled her home in the city last evening. She and her husband drove all night in a car with their 3 children, aged 5 to 14, and their elderly cat. By the time we spoke on FaceTime this afternoon, they'd been on the road from Yellowknife for 17 hours. I asked her how she managed to keep her kids calm through the ordeal.
It was scary, but it was also very, very fascinating to be so close to the fire and to sort of start to reckon with the reality of the situation. It starts to clarify what really, really matters about life. And so there was lots of tears, having to leave behind our home and our things and our friends. Not sure when we'd see them next, but our kids are okay. They're my eldest daughter, who's 14, is making a vlog of the journey, and I think that kind of ability for her to observe as we travel is helping her process the emotions of this trip.
The Manitoba Progressive Conservatives say they want to give parents greater oversight of what their kids learn in school. CBC's Cameron McLean reports some community members applaud the campaign promise.
PC leader Heather Stephenson says a lot has changed since the last time the list of parents' rights was updated in 1996.
There wasn't the texting. There wasn't the cyberbullying.
New rights enshrined in law would include the right to be informed about curriculum, advanced notice about speakers from outside the school system, and to be involved in addressing bullying and other behavioral changes.
We have heard loud and clear from parents that they worry about losing touch with what matters most for their children, what they're learning, how they're feeling, and if they're struggling.
For some, the changes address concerns about education materials they consider inappropriate.
There are a couple of books that had sexual education and sexually inappropriate content, so I feel like books should be scrutinized a whole lot more.
One former school teacher and parent says many of the rights the PCs are promising already exist. School boards provide caregivers a way to influence their children's education. And he worries the party is responding to efforts to limit access to materials about LGBTQ people, like in Brandon's school division earlier this year.
My first response was confusion. My second response was, oh no, I think this is trying to rally support for a suspicion about schools.
NDP leader Wab Kinew echoed those concerns.
Heather Stephenson and the PCs are trying to divide Manitobans. In this case, they're very clearly blowing a dog whistle about LGBTQ folks.
If re-elected, the PCs would amend the list of parents' rights in the Public Schools Act. It already includes things like the right to be part of a parent advisory council and to consult with teachers about academic achievement. The election is set for October 3rd. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, one day after NDP leader Wab Kinew said he'd be tough on crime if he were elected premier, he tried to back it up today by unveiling a crime strategy which could include hiring more police officers. CBC's Ian Fraze explains.
NDP leader Wab Kinew says crime rates are getting worse, even in the suburbs.
It is very clear to people in this part of the city and across the province that Heather Stephenson's approach to crime just isn't working.
Kinew said an NDP government would be tougher than the PCs on crime and its causes. If elected in October, the NDP would hire 100 mental health staff to join police on nonviolent calls, freeing up cops to respond to violent crimes. The party would also push for bail reforms and give people and businesses up to $300 to buy security equipment like cameras. They'd also require people with unexplained wealth to say how they got it, if illegal activity is suspected.
If you're a gangster driving a $100,000 car, we're going to ask how you paid for that.
These promises come one day after Kinew vowed to go after criminals hard, despite his past run-ins with the law. On Thursday, Kinew said he believes there aren't enough police. He would hire more if needed.
I would support that if that's what law enforcement says is necessary.
A criminologist says that may disappoint some voters.
Some, more hardcore NDP supporters who might be a little bit turned off by using that tough on crime language.
The NDP supporter who hosted the party's announcement doesn't mind hiring more police. Her adult son was mugged.
So when you do phone 911 or even the non-emergency number to get the police, one time they came at 3 o'clock in the morning and it happened at 5 at night.
PCMLA Kelvin Gertson says the NDP is promising things the Tories are doing now. He says the criminal property forfeiture branch is already going after illegal money. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The annual Winnipeg Wine Festival is being temporarily shelved because of the Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries strike. It's usually held in mid-September, featuring more than 400 wines from nearly a dozen countries. One of the festival's organizers says based on what's happening, the decision to postpone is prudent. The full-scale strike has closed many liquor marts for more than a week, but the disruption in liquor deliveries and sales has been going on since last month. Festival organizers say they will confirm new dates as soon as possible. All previously purchased tickets to the wine festival will be honored. Meantime, Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries and the Manitoba Government and General Employees Union say they are heading back to the bargaining table. Earlier this week, Liquor and Lotteries agreed to binding arbitration, but the union did not. The push to search the Prairie Green landfill for the remains of murdered Indigenous women has been gaining support, including from people outside the Indigenous community. A rally was organized by the National Union of Taxation Employees from across the country today. CBC's Zubina Ahmed was there.
Chants rang outside the Canadian Museum of Human Rights. Bring them home. Hundreds of protesters wearing red T-shirts marched from the Fairmont Hotel downtown to the museum. This rally was organized by the National Union of Taxation Employees based in Ottawa. This was one of the first non-Indigenous-led marches for supporting the search of the landfill.
It's absolutely terrible what has happened for years. And I think that we have an opportunity to denounce this one once again and show solidarity and be allies. So we're proud of doing it.
The Taxation Employees Union is having the annual convention here in Winnipeg, and they decided to organize this march in support of the search for the landfill. About 200 to 250 employees from across the country and coast to coast have joined in solidarity. Families of the women whose remains are believed to be in the landfill joined the rally and called out for action.
We need to bring our loved ones home for a proper burial. They're not trash. They don't belong at the Brady landfill or any landfill.
I feel amazing. We've gotten such good supports with both camps being set up, and I feel like we're getting the word out there more and more people are being aware of what's happening and what the problem is here.
The push to search the Prairie Green landfill has been going on since December last year. The taxation employees demanded action from the provincial and federal governments.
We're asking for the Manitoban government to please reconsider and bring these women back to their families. We just want people to realize that it's not only an Indigenous cause, it's a human cause.
The unions say they will write to MPs across the country to push for a search of the landfill. Zabina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
An 80-year-old Winnipegger is back from a very long bike ride. Fred N. cycled 3,000 kilometers across southern Manitoba within 1 month to raise money to help Ukrainian newcomers in this province. He's very used to long rides. He finished this latest one last night at Folklorama's Ukraine-Kyiv Pavilion at Maples Collegiate. Enns is a retired teacher, an avid cyclist who, as I mentioned, is used to traveling long distances. His own parents came to Canada from Ukraine, and he says he wanted to do something to help newcomers now. Enns raised $10,000 for the Manitoba Council of the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress.
I enjoy riding a bike, so I chose that. And if I go through as many villages and cities as possible in a period of time, and at my age, it might draw some attention, and that can motivate them to contribute.
Well done, Mr. Enns.
That's just inspiring, isn't it?
Yeah, it totally is. 80 and fit enough to do that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Plus, having the heart to think of others.
And given food, Ukrainian food at the end, he probably ate the whole thing.
Perfect.
Pretty hungry.
His parents would be so proud.
Yeah, you know what, Janet? This afternoon, the air quality advisory ended for Winnipeg and the rest of southern Manitoba. So a little bit of good news. We didn't have that smoky condition today that we did on Tuesday, but I'll show you the current conditions, and yeah, we'll just see where that air quality advisory is in effect, northwestern Ontario, and of course right across northern Manitoba, northern Saskatchewan. And then we've got a heat warning out in southwestern Saskatchewan and most of southern Alberta. I'll talk more about that in a second, because that kind of heat is heading into southwestern Manitoba with some steamy stuff on the way for tomorrow. I want to show you this. This is Yellowknife's winds, okay? So winds consistently out of the northwest blowing smoke in that area. And this is, I think, why the evacuation is happening, because most of the fires are northwest and north of the town of Yellowknife. And as that wind continues to be very consistent, that's the worry. And that's why the smoke is very, very heavy in that area. So here we are, even tomorrow afternoon. It shifts a little more to the west, but still gusting to about 30 kilometers per hour. And we maintain that strength or higher right through the day on Saturday. So winds are concerning in that part of the country. 24 degrees right now. Our visibility, 13 kilometers. To put that into perspective, it was 3 kilometers on Tuesday. So the advisory has ended here. We don't have much cloud either, so a beautifully sunny day with that temperature of 24. Yeah, actually very, very comfortable outside. In the north, a little bit of cloud, and as we look at futurecasts, there will be some showers and a risk of a thunderstorm across parts of northern Manitoba tomorrow. Flin Flon across to Norway House, Thompson, out to the northeast, including Churchill. That would be the morning hours, and then in the afternoon, this really gets going through Thompson and out into God's Lake. Meanwhile, in the south, we are just developing a very strong southerly wind as we head through the day Friday, and that'll keep the smoke up into north northern Manitoba. Unfortunate for northern communities, but we stay clear here across the south. On Saturday, we will see a bit of a wind shift around to the northwest once again on into the afternoon, but it does look like dry weather will continue in southern Manitoba, even though the fields do need a little bit of moisture for sure, probably a lot of moisture in some cases, but dry conditions over the next few days. So Friday morning, we're looking at wind velocities like this. The yellows that you see over the lakes, winds are already strong there. And then on into the afternoon, we've got gusts showing up at around 54. And yeah, you look at Kenora, for instance, at 44 in the afternoon. I think there's potential here for wind gusts up to 70. And then as we get into the weekend, we start to see that northwest wind developing, and we get into stronger winds again on Saturday afternoon at about 30 to 40. But this is what your Friday looks like. Winds out of the south, 40 gusting to 70. High of 29. I do want to show you the cross Canada conditions, because showers and storms in the north and some pretty warm conditions. But check out the numbers in Brandon and Dauphin: 34, 33, some 32s around Portage, Morden and Winkler. Here in the southeast, still warm, not quite 30s. And then as we head over into northwestern Ontario, we are mid to upper 20s with a sun-cloud mix. Janet?
Thank you so much, John. Reading slumps can be hard to get out of, especially when you walk into a bookstore or a library and you're just overwhelmed with options, choices. Thankfully, the librarians at the Winnipeg Public Library are pros at playing literary matchmaker. With just a little bit of information about you, they can recommend 5 books within 5 business days. The CBC's Chloe Friesen filled out a form and visited the Millennium Library to get some recommendations of her own.
Are you stuck in a reading slump? I am too. It can be tough to know where to start, especially when there are so many options. Thankfully, the librarians here at the Winnipeg Public Library are here to help and to play literary matchmaker. So Danielle, can you explain the 5 in 5 book list to me? What is it?
It's a service where we give people 5 books or other items to try. It's an online form that you fill out with a little bit of information about yourself, and then you get back 5 things to try, hopefully new and exciting.
I've got the survey here. I have filled it out. What questions are you looking at first to kind of get a sense of what somebody might like to read?
But honestly, one of the most important questions is where we ask what you are in the mood for right now.
Right.
Because you might not be in the mood for the kind of thing you've read in the past.
Okay, I'm very excited. You've chosen 5 books for me.
Yes.
You have 3 of them here.
Yep.
Let's take a look.
Okay.
What do we have?
Well, first of all, you mentioned that you liked Wes Anderson movies.
I love a good Wes Anderson film.
And that you were interested in coming-of-age stories.
Yes.
And reading about art.
Yes.
So this title touches on all 3 of those. It's a very whimsical, quirky book, perfect for fans of Wes Anderson, I would say. There's a lot of humor in it, for sure.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Okay, so you mentioned you were interested in Indigenous authors. This Minnie Graysmith is a Canadian author. This is called Tilly and the Crazy Eights.
Okay.
And this is about a young girl named Tilly who receives an invitation to drive 8 elders on what they're calling their bucket list road trip. They want to go to the Great Powwow of Nations in Albuquerque.
Okay, well, yeah, let's add it to the pile. And lastly, what's this one about?
This one is just fun. It's called Musical Chairs. So this is about 2 people who were music students together. They formed a chamber quartet, but one of their members has just resigned, so they're looking for a new member. At the same time, she thought she was going to be having a lovely summer, then her boyfriend broke up with her. Her adult children suddenly wind up back on her doorstep. So it's very much a comedy of errors. I would say this one kind of falls into the category of summer comedy.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Danielle, you've knocked it out of the park here, and I can check these books out now?
Yeah, absolutely.
If they're available? Amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We'll have more on the situation in the Northwest Territories and how the federal government is responding when CBC Winnipeg News returns.
Returning now to our top story. The federal government is involved with the evacuation of Yellowknife. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau convened a meeting this afternoon of the Incident Response Group. That includes the cabinet ministers whose departments can offer support in this type of emergency. CBC's Kate McKenna brings us more from Ottawa.
The federal government says it's all hands on deck to fight this blaze and get Yellowknife residents out safely.
This is an unprecedented situation, and it's absolutely necessary. We do everything to assist and support the people of the Northwest Territories and those communities impacted by these fires.
For now, the defense minister says leaving by road is the safest option, but he says they've got a plan if roads become unsafe.
We're quite prepared within a very, very short period of time, and I'm talking only 2 hours, to start moving large aircraft through there to assist with the evacuation, and also working with commercial airlines to ensure that we coordinate and make maximum use of those airfields and we can get people to safety.
Canada's military is already deployed. More than 100 troops are on the ground helping with firefighting, coordinating a massive evacuation, and if need be, providing planes for air evacuations.
We'll be there for people as they need us, and we'll make sure that this is done safely and efficiently.
The Transport Ministry says it's talking to airlines, asking them to add more flights. And Transport Canada says people will be allowed to bring their pets on commercial flights, another way to convince people to get out while it's still safe. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
And now for the latest on the wildfires in Hawaii. There are 111 confirmed deaths right now on Maui. As people there grapple with the devastation and the loss, the Hawaiian government is facing questions about its emergency response, specifically why sirens were not sounded when disaster struck.
The sirens, as I had mentioned earlier, is used primarily for tsunamis, and that's the reason why many of them are found, almost all of them are found, on the coastline. The public is trained to seek higher ground in the event that the siren is sounded.
That's because usually the emergency could be coming from the ocean and not from the land. 1,000 people are still believed to be missing as crews continue to battle fires across the island. The road to Lahaina, that tourist hotspot that has been so popular and so destroyed, has been reopened to the public. Your 7-day forecast is coming up, plus we'll bring you your daily lift, so stay with us. You're watching CBC News Winnipeg.
Well, it's the fastest growing sport in North America. More and more people are playing pickleball. Forecast for tomorrow. If you are playing, you might want to do it in the morning. Look at the winds in the afternoon and the heat. And then after that, we have a pretty dry weekend on the way. 27 Saturday, a little bit cooler Sunday at 23 degrees. Our next chance for much needed rain is Monday, and a chance of showers in a cooler 21. You know, a good way to get people to do a job they don't like is to make it a game.
Here is your Daily Lift. These folks are taking part in Spagomi, a real competition with real rules that started in Japan and is spread to cities around the world. Spagomi gets its name from combining the Japanese words for sports and litter picking. Teams are ranked on how much and what kind of trash they pick up in a set period. The winning team here gets a chance to go to Tokyo in November to compete in the World Championship. What a cool sport, huh, John?
Yeah.
Now, I think it's amazing that somebody wins this, but it's got to be good for the environment and good for the communities. They have to be the real winners in this competition.
Maybe this would be a worldwide thing. We'll end up with a cleaner planet.
What? More popular than pickleball?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Be. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you at 11. Have a great night.
Have a great evening.